Welcome to the Practice You podcast. My name is Elena Brower. Together, we'll explore and enjoy content and conversations around mastering transitions in our relations, our wellness, our careers, our families, and especially in our missions and visions. You are invited to learn and love and listen with me. Welcome to Practice You. Welcome back to the podcast. I have with me a new hero of mine. His name is Kiese Laymon, and he wrote what I think is required reading for every child in America, starting at the age of, I think, 14 would be an appropriate time. The book is called Heavy. The person behind this book is one of the most special people I've ever met on this podcast, and I can't wait to speak to you. Kiese, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I never thought I'd be here, but I'm happy to be talking to you.
I want to first start by saying I wish it had happened sooner.
Right.
I'm so grateful for all of this, that it has happened. And I'll start by saying the following, because I think it's important to preface it. We haven't spoken at length at all, but what I can say is this. As a white Jewish kid from Long Island who was born in 1970, I think very close to you, true?
Yes.
What year were you born?
74.
Yeah. Some of the references in Heavy, I nearly died, fell over out of my chair from the remembrance of the 80s that we share. Your book is part of my very intensive re-education to clear away the bullshit that I was taught in my school and welcome in the truth. And your book has been a huge part of that. I'm on the edge of tears right now. I'm so grateful to you. Your voice in the book, you're addressing your mama from start to finish. You center her as the person to whom you're writing, even though you've said in many interviews it's not a letter. You're centering her, you're centering your hometown of Mississippi, you're centering the secrets and the blackness. And you've even said in one interview that I loved, the wetness, sweat, sex, secrets. It instantly welcomed me in, your book, instantly. So if you're white and you're listening to this and you think, oh, that's not a book for me, I promise you, it's a book for you. It's a book for all of us. It took me in, it took me home. And it helped me see and taste and smell the depth of love that you, your grandmama, and your mama shared, and all the narratives that course through your family, the worst shit and the best. Your book is going to change how I write and how I think. That's what's up.
That's just the most amazing sort of introduction that I could hear. So I appreciate that, and mostly I'm glad you say that it took you home, because ultimately the book is about the places we stay, right? Whether the bodies, the homes, the towns, the cities, but the home, especially in the rooms, in those homes. So
the rooms. What's crazy is that as I was reading it, I was picturing the carpeting in my childhood room. It's so weird that you just said that.
Yeah, those rooms. I mean, rooms are majestic, but they're also almost always haunted. You know what I mean? We kind of don't really unpack what happens in them. And school often doesn't really give us the tools to do that. So we just have to find out how to do that ourselves. So anyway, thank you for letting it take you home. That's a big deal for me.
It's such a pleasure. I would also like to start by saying also to any white listener, this book will give you new eyes and a new mind and a new heart. And if you're afraid of your whiteness, which I'm now learning to talk about as like, hey, look at a chair right now, chairness.
Right.
Look at a lamp right now, that's lampness.
That's right.
Whiteness is not a bad word. If you're afraid of it, reading this book will actually help you look at your own lineage, your own upbringing, your own family secrets, and all the things that were good and bad differently. And it'll help you address the things that you don't want to talk about, I feel, no matter what your color. I know that your mama made you write, and my child is pissed because I'm totally going to start making him write this summer for me. He's so angry. He's 14, almost 14, and he is
Oh,
pissed off. I'm like, this is the first book he's actually going to read for me, and we're going to do writing practices together around this book. Who taught you to write to that? Because this book is addressed to your mama. Where did you get that idea? How did that happen?
It's sort of a long story, but the short version is my grandmother didn't read a ton of books, but she reread the Bible. Like, I mean, probably 100 or 200 times, and I don't know. Like she believed that that Bible was written to her, and so as a young kid, like I didn't have a language or anything, but I always knew that I wanted to create the kind of art that did to people's bodies what the Bible did to my grandmama's bodies. And initially, I couldn't find literary art to do that, so it was like musical art, particularly like hip hop, rap music at the time. Like really, just sanctified me. I felt like a lot of those human beings were writing to me, even though they weren't. I felt like they were. So, and it was a different feeling when I got to school because we were, like as black kids, we were often asked to write ourselves out of our assignments. We couldn't write about the things that brought us joy. We couldn't write in styles that brought us joy. We couldn't really even explore joy. If you can't explore joy in a classroom, you definitely can't explore terror. So,
Hmm.
it's just like I just wanted to create a piece of art that people could feel was speaking to them and to parts of themselves that they might not acknowledge. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to do that hard thing, which is to make people feel like that piece of sort of a tree in their hand is
Yeah.
is, is as valuable as the heart in their chest. And that's what I was trying to do.
Mission accomplished,
Man, thank you.
straight up. W.E.B. Du Bois said, and this was pointed out in one of the interviews that I saw, I watched a few of them with you. He said that Black people have a double consciousness. And I'm bringing this up because this is something I want my white listener to feel.
Right.
The life you live in the white world and the life you live in the Black world. And here's the perfect definition of white privilege. We have never had to do that. We've never had to do that. That's our privilege. An entire level of our nervous system, I feel, is completely free to be creative, do whatever the fuck you want to do, because you don't have to think about managing who you're showing up as in this one context and in this other context.
Right.
And that is a great understanding that I have gained from reading your book and from watching the interviews with you because you're so articulate in this realm. I really have to thank you for teaching me that inadvertently. What is the consequence? Here's the question, pursuant to heavy. What is the consequence of masking that pain? Because I can see it in your mom, I can see it in your grandmama, and I can see it in so many of the people in your life, the characters in the book. I can see the pain masked coming through as all of these very rich, sad, deep stories and arcs and narratives. What do you feel are the consequences of masking that pain?
Oh, that's a big question. Um, I mean, the great thing about that question is that it should be asked of if we're just going to be local, it should be asked of every American. What are the consequences of masking like the rooms in your body? Like, okay, there's a room, there's something in there that you need to go in there and look at, but what are the consequences of just believing that that room doesn't exist? Well, in real life, shit in there can start to stink and the rest of the house can start to stink, if you don't go in there and check and see what's in that room. So, for my grandma, my mom, and my mama, they came up in different times. But one thing was similar was that they were not allowed as black women to fail and definitely not to fail publicly, which means that this artificial sort of like baseline of excellence became the goal, but it also became the only thing you could really talk about. So when you didn't reach
Right.
that artificial like space of excellence, you got to deal with the converse, which is the shame.
Mm.
And when you're dealing with that shame, you got to deal with that guilt and that shame. I think for all families, but definitely for my family, it can eat us up, and and we can fall into relationships with money or food or sex or
Mm.
all kind of things that like unhealthy relationships with those things. I'm not saying those things are unhealthy. So, in that
Right.
way, it's just like what humans do. You hide the things that really you need to tend to. you know, they're gonna come out. You're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
But I also just want to say something about what you said earlier about white folks, like having the privilege to not sort of reckon with whiteness. And while I believe that is so true, it's also, I think, an indictment of our educational system, right? Where
That's true.
if we want to live in the world that this nation, at least a nation that purports to be land of the free, home of the brave, all of
Mm.
these things, it's like we should have taught white children that confronting and reckoning with whiteness is necessary for us to be the nation that it purports to be. Similarly, like with patriarchy, like if we really want to be the nation we purport to be, we have to start teaching young people who identify as boys and eventually men that, like, confronting this masculine hardness is something that we got to contend with. So it's a privilege, but it's also an indictment of the way we were all educated, I think.
I have a team, a separate business, and I have a team of tens of thousands of people. And I put myself as a white woman in charge of teaching this predominantly white team about all of this. And I've made the comparison to, even though it's not quite the same, it is, and I mean this from my heart, as a Jew, I can say this. I've made the comparison to the kids in Germany who, during the 50s, late 40s, 50s, 60s, weren't really taught about the Third Reich. That was sort of glossed over in history. And those kids who are our age now, not our age, they're a little older than us, but I've spoken to some of the kids who are a little closer to our age and a little bit older. And they all said the same thing. They all said the same thing. They weren't really taught it until later.
Right.
Then they had to find out for themselves.
Yeah.
And if we don't take the responsibility for finding out for ourselves, we are contributing to the problem. And God forbid a white person who's still not learning. God forbid you happen to fall in love with someone of color.
Right.
God forbid you have a baby of color. Then what?
Right.
I
Then what?
got
That's the
then what? I
then
got friends. I got friends who have kids of color. It's a very
Yeah,
real thing,
for
and
real.
they're learning.
Yeah. And there's a consequence, right? I mean, that's just the thing about learning, is that I think it's taught literally and cinematically as this sort of clean transformation, but learning is messy. Learning
Hmm.
requires so much revision. And the thing that this is tied to the question you asked about my mom and my grandmama. The thing
Mm.
that learning really requires is failure, right? You have to
Right.
put forth a theory or something that is wrong in order to go back and revise it. And so we're just not in this country, like, we sort of like cherish the winners, and we don't really think about like the cost of winning
Yeah.
and losing. That's what I think, at least. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I just
Mm.
want to write a book that brought a lot of that to life. And Heavy was an attempt to really just look at the cost of someone who, for all intents and purposes, like, I look like a winner on paper. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in Mississippi. We didn't have much money. My mama didn't have much money at all. I became a college professor. I became a writer. And so, yeah, okay, by American standards, that's success. But the interiority, I think, is
No.
the most important thing. And if you neglect that, as we are taught to do, you ride
Yeah.
and you ride other people, you help other people ride. And
Yeah.
it, mine is specific to me, mine is specific to a black Southern context, but that's a human context. You
Yeah.
don't deal with your shit, you're gonna ride and you're gonna hurt other people.
What's interesting too is that the issues that you were facing, there's your mom, loving, accomplished, makes you right on fucking Reagan's claim that the brunt of a lawbreaker's
Right.
crime falls on him and not society,
Yeah.
makes you right on Jim Crow, makes you right on all the strategies used by black elected officials in Mississippi, all these things that she made you write about. So brilliant. Like, she made you who you are. And then at the same time, And she's still alive. So I say this with the most respect. I had issues with my dad. He's still alive. All the respect in the world. But she also was super abusive to you and almost like terrorizing you in certain moments because she herself was being abused and terrorized. How on earth? Like, I want to be brought to the moment where she read the book and you and she sat down and somehow this got reconciled. I'm dying to hear about this.
Oh man. Well, again, because I read a lot and watch a lot of film, I wanna cry that moment. But there have been lots of moments, and my mom. I had to interview my mom a lot to write this book, and of course, during the
Right.
interview process, she didn't want me to say some of the stuff that was going to go in it, so I took out a lot of what she didn't want. But at the end,
Mm,
when it was kind of drafted and I showed it to her, uh, she says it made her stomach hurt. And the
mm,
thing that she wanted me to understand was that loving me as a child was not hard. She's like, I made it hard because I kept so many secrets from you. But the thing is, you think you're keeping secrets from your child, but especially if it's just you and your child, like your child can see. And conversely, I kept a lot of secrets from her that I thought she didn't see, but she saw. Uh,
right.
so when the book came out, we talked primarily about addiction, about gambling addiction. We talked about food. We talked about lying, and I told her that the thing about being her is that she's brilliant and she's helped so many people in my state, but she also has a son and a mother who she never ever has to lie to about anything because we're always
That's
gonna
right.
love her. Do you know what I'm saying? Like my mom
Totally.
I'm not a parent, but I think parents tend to hurt children. Parents do a lot to children. They help children. They hold children. They give them wings. But she just, she did not have to ever lie to me because I
Hmm.
don't love her. Like, and I'm always gonna forgive my mama. I'm gonna
Mm,
try to take care of myself. Now, what I mean, I've learned some coping skills. Like if sometimes if I feel like she might be pulling me into the deep end, I found some coping skills to kind of be there for her without drowning too. But human beings drown. So there wasn't just like this one moment where mom was like, "Key, that's what the book is doing. I'm playing with the notion of like deliverance. Like, okay, we had the quick
right.
conversation, it's all good. Okay, you wrote the book, now it's all good. We still gotta have to deal with each other at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
and right now we're in a wonderful space. Like she is. We're talking every day about addiction. We're talking every day about joy. We're remembering not just the sorrowful things, but we're remembering things that other rooms that were actually full of joy that we didn't think, we were
Mm,
punishing ourselves because we were, addicted to gambling or whatever. And sometimes when you punish yourself and you feel shame and guilt, you have access to joy that you push away. And
right.
so, lately we've been talking more about like really joyful, funny things. And so we're in a good place today. Now tomorrow it could be different, but today we are.
Right. It's so beautiful. There are a couple of details that I pulled out of the book. The way that there was one time where you were in the car and she had just picked you up, and I think she had just been beaten by Malachi, and you put your hand under her knee when she was sad, like she did for you. I
Yeah,
wept for an hour, and it made me think of all the parents. I happen to have people in my life who've taught me that if I screw up, touch my kid, yell at my kid, whatever it is, touch my kid a handful of times in his
right.
life. And every time, though, I'm taught to just get in there and say in every word that I can use, I'm sorry for
Yes,
X, Y, Z, right away, and repattern the shame from it. There's actually studies done on this. Repattern the shame and immediately turn all of the synaptic connections in the brain back to creativity and away from adrenaline, fight or flight,
wow,
all that.
wow,
Super interesting stuff. But wow, when I read this, I fucking died. I just I couldn't stop crying for a very, very long time. And I realized that this was one of the reasons for this book, why it should be required reading for all American kids, and I think parents too, is that we need to see and feel at close range what it feels like to be a child. Forget the color for a second.
Right.
A child of a mother who has just been beaten, who is also beating the child who for whom the child cannot help but give all of his love. It is the most important thing to see because
Yeah.
it would stop a lot of people from hurting their kids.
I think it would. I think it would. I mean,
Yeah.
that was one hope. I don't want to write didactic art, but one hope was that parents would just be a bit more cognizant of the importance of tender touch.
Yeah.
And all of our parents are gonna get beat down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, maybe not beat down from a partner, but beat down from something in this
Mm-hmm.
world.
In this world.
But
Yeah.
there's ways to deal with that that don't entail like sort of trying to destroy your children. And and the most important thing is I want to say is I just think there are a lot of ways to do that. I think their parents, from teaching young children. I know kids who were never ever hit by their parents, but who were brutalized psychologically, brutalized emotionally, brutalized spiritually from parents who did not deal with their own brutalization. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I say that because I think sometimes because I talk in that book, I mean I'm also talking about emotional abuse, but because I write about physical abuse, I think people sometimes don't think about the ways that we all harm people, especially emotionally, psychologically, spiritually too. And
Totally.
I don't have children for a lot of reasons, but one because I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I just don't want to hurt anybody, and I definitely don't want to hurt my kids. But my
Yeah.
friends are like, fam, that's just part of being a human. Human beings hurt people, but I just think we can be better at tender touch. And when we, as you just said, if we do hurt folks, and we know we should not have, be they
Mm.
children, be they grandparents, be they a stranger, I
Yeah.
think we have to like think about what reparation means. Like, what does it mean to repair that damage done? And that's something we're not good at in this country, particularly when we think about black and white folks. We're not good at admitting the harm done, and we're definitely not good at attempting to repair it. Can't repair anything that you don't think is wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I say this, just flashed across my screen that Trump shut down any hope of taking the Confederate statues or flags off of the army bases. Fucking asshole.
Of course he did.
I can't even stand it. And all of the officials were actually open. They had expressed openness to it, and he shut it down. We got
Yeah.
to get him out of office.
I think that the thing about Trump is that I always just have to keep reminding myself that is again like as singular as he is, and he is a singular kind of evil, right?
Mm,
There's a
mm,
part of this country that made that emboldened him with power. Do you know?
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
it's harder. I think it's easy to get on MSNBC and easy to get on CNN and talk about the shit he does because he's a singular kind of evil that I've never seen. I'm gonna be
yeah,
honest with you,
yeah.
but that dude would be impotent were there not tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of people who actually think he's not being brutal enough. And the thing that I think white folks need to deal with is that why do the majority of white voters in this country vote for that man, and not just because he's Republican. Okay, well, why do the majority of white people in this country support a kind of singular evil entity? And that's a
Yeah.
question that like white folks have to answer. Because I don't know any black people who voted for Trump or support Trump. I don't. Like I personally don't. But every white person I know knows somebody who does familiarly. Relate a friend or friend of a friend. And I just think
Former friends.
former friends, right? I just think until we really get to that, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
we're gonna be in a heavy place as a nation
Yes.
because it's not just that. It's not just him. He's a mascot and he's a evil mascot. But like who's coming to the pep rallies? And how did like American churches, American schools, and American families create Americans who would support someone who has like the ultimate appetite for suffering?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like when his poll numbers slip, he tries to do things that are more cruel to get more Americans, quote unquote, in his camp. That says something about us. But I really think it says something about white folk. And I'm not sure what.
All I know is that I have friends, capable, beautiful, intelligent women friends who are openly supporting him and
Wow,
all of his theories. Oh
wow.
yeah, you know This is one of the most confusing aspects of it. It's not how to face my whiteness, because all I have to do to get that straight is educate myself. That's all I have to do. That's not confusing. I'm not afraid of that. Sure, I'm sure I'll be clumsy at some point. I'm sure I'm going
Right,
to fuck it up as a woman in wellness and white. I'm sure I'm going
right,
to screw it up. But I'm not scared, because all I have to do is learn. What I
right.
am scared of is the women in wellness who are white, who are not doing this work, who are actually supporting the complete opposite side. I actually saw somebody who had a hashtag, a beautiful white woman friend of mine, that said Blue Lives Matter. And I fucking
Wow,
died. I fucking
wow.
died. I started crying right there on the
Ooh,
spot.
that's tough.
Yeah, it knocked the wind out of my body.
That's tough, man.
This is not what we are talking about. This is not the conversation we are having right now, or ever, really. I'm not debating. I know police officers, I know people who are doing the job, who are doing it right.
Right.
I mean, tons of stories of I just had a talk with my friend who's founded Commune. He was on the walking to a protest with his three kids. He's white, and he comes across a black cop, and the exchange they had, wordless, was one of the most beautiful he's had in his life. The long, slow nod that the black cop gave him when he smiled, that full of love and full of meaning and full of recognition and acknowledgement. What the fuck are we talking about when we talk about the fact that anything is going right with regards to the police right now? There's nothing going right. There has to be a change.
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder about I mean I agree, obviously, like, I'm someone who doesn't really believe in guns, and I don't believe in prisons, and but I do think if we're gonna talk about what people are saying about defund or disband police, I just think that conversation has to be had in tandem with education, education,
Reallocation.
yeah, and economic, wealth inequality. It's like, so anyway, I just think to deal with one without dealing with those, and I think we have to take, I think people who I know who are on the front lines would be like, yeah, we're talking about police now,
Right.
but I'm just saying in general, a conversation about the way, for example, like I've been handcuffed in my life by police like what 8 times. I've had guns to my head by police 4 times. I don't drink, you know what I'm saying? I don't steal shit other than I stole a book from a library and took it back. Um,
Hmm.
I didn't grow up selling weed. I didn't grow up doing weed. And police have put guns to my head 8 different
Wow.
times. So that's a conversation, but I just don't think we can talk about that conversation adequately without talking about the ways that those police were also trained as students, as human beings, students, and so educationally, and also in terms of religion, because the thing is, a lot of these cops who are doing this call themselves Christian. So it's just like, I just think there are a lot of just overlapping things that we got to really get to the root of
Yeah.
if we want to be free. And that's the question, like, do we want to be free? Like, free, it's, being unfree for a long time, just like any sort of pattern, it becomes normalized. So, like, do we
Yeah.
want to be free? Do we want to
Yeah.
share? Do we really want to swim in joy? I don't. I think a lot of us don't, even though we would say we do. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a familiarity to oppression. There's a familiarity, and of all kinds. I'm not just staying with this conversation, but there's a familiarity to any kind of oppression in any kind of family.
Right.
I know some of the, too, some wealthy white families where there's oppression like I've never seen anything before, and
Oh,
everybody comes out of there damaged as fuck, like
yeah.
super damaged.
Super down.
And that is what's familiar. So then they go and pick the partner like that, or they pick the
Absolutely.
friends like that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
there's that bit. I'm just amazed at how much I didn't know, and thankful for what I'm finally coming to know.
I'm thankful too. I think committing to be a active student is a revolutionary act for an
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
Do you know? I think we're
That's right.
taught that our education should end after 12th, or after we graduate, or after we get a PhD. And nah, that education,
Mm-hmm.
that messy revision has to go on until we die.
Yeah. Tell me when you when you finally got a handle, the moment that you got a handle on the fact that you had a gambling problem, I just want to look at that for a second. I myself am sober for, let's see, more than 5.5 years now. I
Oh
was a
wow!
total
Congratulations!
pothead. Oh my God, thank you.
You
I
were
was the worst kind of pothead. If you ever did smoke weed and you found me when I was smoking weed, we would have had a very good time.
pregnant.
Um,
That's funny.
I know.
Maybe it's not funny. I'm sorry. It's like
It is funny. No, it has to be. You have to make it funny.
weed is always the one you're supposed to laugh at, right? That's just like my
That's
instinct was
right.
to laugh because you said weed, but no, like
Mm,
congratulations
yeah.
for for confronting something that I assume was not healthy for you. Um,
No, it wasn't. It was the thing that I thought I needed every day, like to be functional and funny and cool.
yeah.
Yeah. But I want to know about your gambling because I've never had a gambling issue and I'm very, very curious to hear what the parallels are. How did you figure it out? When did you acknowledge it? And how did you like surmount it, walk around it?
Well, when I've been going to casinos my entire life as a young person.
I
Even when I was
remember.
like, I start the book off talking about I'm like 11 or 12 or something like that, and I'm in Vegas.
Yep.
I'm too young to be in a casino, but I'm a big boy,
Yes.
so
Yes.
the cops don't think that I'm a child. And so I've been, so between the ages of like 8 and probably 30, I'd gone in and out of casinos with my family because my family just loves to gamble. But around the time I was 31 or 32, I'd run my body into the ground from exercise. I mean, I was addicted to exercise. That was my biggest addiction. And and
Mm.
the problem was I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating. So, got my body fat down to like 3%. And everybody was,
Wow.
a lot of people were just saying, you look so good and blah, 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 blah. And then when I broke my joints broke and I couldn't run.
Mm.
And then the only thing that could give me the same sort of high that I got from running my body into the ground was gambling, like. And at first I was just like, it's my money. I didn't come from money. I've saved this money up. I don't splurge on anything except like, music sometimes and books, but I get books free now. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna like go out and just go to the casino and just see what happens. And it's like the worst thing in the world that can happen. You go to the casino one
Yeah.
day and you fucking win. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, and then it was just like ever since that day, I mean, I just kept coming back. But after a while, my interior life was shambles. My relationship was fucking horrid. And then you
Mm.
just start going to the casino, not even to win, but just to get the feeling of competing, even though you're gonna lose, right? You're gonna lose. Like you cannot like that's the thing about casinos, you can't beat them in the long
No.
run. You know what I mean?
No.
Like it's and every year that you get deeper and deeper and deeper, you keep thinking, well, man, maybe one day I'll win that 10 million, maybe one day I'll win that 15 million. But like for most people who go to the casino a lot, it doesn't matter if you win 15 million because you're gonna get back 15 million plus one. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so
Right.
for me, it was just like I spent all my savings. I sold my truck. I started getting these payday loans,
Mm.
and I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I didn't, I'm also like gender dynamics in my family are weird. Like I'm the youngest, but I was also supposedly the man of the house, so I needed to send money to my
Right.
mom, to my auntie, to my grandmama. So I would still make sure I sent them a little bit of money. But when I got to the point where I didn't have anything, like every work check I got was gone. I'd be at the casino. I get paid at 12 a.m. By 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd spent all of that. Do you know what I mean? And so
Mm. Mm.
I just had to talk. And
Oh.
so for me, I didn't go to Gamblers Anonymous. I talked, I wrote about it. I tried to talk to my parents about it because they both were obviously dealing with gambling issues. And real talk, like heavy is what brought me out of it. Like I had to write
Yeah.
that book to look it in the face and also to not isolate it, to also just see like a pattern of what led to it. Do you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like heavy is about a lot of other things other than gambling, but
Yeah.
it definitely is about gambling, literally and metaphorically. And so, when you don't have any money and you don't have any children and you gambled your car away and you gambled your with the place where you stay, you can't live there anymore. But on the surface, you're a successful writer. Like there's a problem. There's a big
Yeah.
problem there,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
needed to do what my mama taught me, which is to use my art to try to heal myself. And that's what I did. Like that's why in
Mm.
some way heavy is like, it's a heavy book, and it's not afraid of despair, but it's also like it relishes in the importance of like art making and like our healing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
creating that book was how I got out of not just gambling, but not thinking that I was worth having anything. And that's what my shit was. Like I didn't think I was, because I was in a relationship that was absolutely terrible, and it was terrible because I was a fucking like deceptive ass liar. After
Mm.
that relationship was, I felt shame, I felt guilt, and then I
Yeah.
just thought like I can just punish myself by giving everything away. And then, you come to a point where you're like, fuck, yo, like I'm at that point now where most people who are gambling addicts start stealing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't want
Yeah.
to do that. Like, I don't want to, I'm not, that's not my thing. I'm not trying to steal from people or deceive people to get money so anyway, I just needed to use the art and try to get myself out of that addiction through that art by actually confronting it and talking about what came before and what could come after, and try to have hard conversations with my mother about it, which that was really hard.
Yeah.
That was hard. That was very hard.
You know, I hope sometimes your mama listens to these things because she needs to know that despite the mistakes that were made, despite the hands that she raised, she did something for you that translated into a gift to millions of people in time, like going forward many generations. This book that she ended up being she was the impulse, she
Right.
was the catalyst in a way.
It was.
The fact that this book is going to go out to so many different millions of people in time, she gave a huge gift with all the mistakes that she made. Huge gift that wipes them out, I feel.
Absolutely. No question. I mean, that's what I try to that's what I want the reader to understand, is that if
Yep,
you appreciate this piece of art you're holding in your hands, you have to appreciate the person who was really most responsible for it. And the people who were most responsible for that book are my
that's right.
mama and my grandmama. You know what I mean?
That woman. Yo, your grandmama is so funny. I wish I could meet her.
She's a real deal, fam.
Oh,
She's an incredible human being. She's just so fucking good at love. She's just great at
yes.
love,
Yes.
and I'm not I mean, now, when you cross her, she will get you. She will get you. I said I don't believe in guns in prison, but my grandmama believes in both. She'll get you if you cross her, but you got to cross
Right.
her a few times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be disrespect her and humiliate her a few times. But when she's unlike me, I can forgive anybody. But my grandmama, nah, nah. But she's just so good at love. She's so tender. I've never heard her say a derogatory thing about any like maligned group of people, be
Mm,
it
mm,
queer, Latinx, like nothing.
mm.
She had a lot to say about white folks who have not done right by her.
As she should.
But those same people, she would invite in her house. She would ask them what they want. Are you good? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
she's a model of love that I want to embody. But my mama she encouraged the kind of artful rigor that made heavy possible. There's no question about that.
You know the word heavy in. So I've taught yoga for almost 30 years now. The word heavy
Wow.
is the root of the word guru, and it means the one who has the most weight.
Whoa.
Gravitational, you know what I mean? Gravitationally, the one who really holds the space,
Wow.
right?
Wow. I should
Yeah.
have known that before I wrote the book. That's my grandma. That's who she
That's
is.
what I was just gonna say. That's her.
That's her. That's her. And it's so interesting because she said this, I was interviewing her, and she was like, you know, just heavy enough. And I was like, that phrase just stuck with me. And I'm like, heavy enough for what? And she's just like, I think she said something like heavy enough to like not fly away or something, just heavy enough. And so like the idea of being heavy enough is just something I also wanted to play with in that book.
That's what made me think of it when I read that line.
Yeah. Man,
That
I
sh-
remember
that
that.
she was talking about. It felt to me like she was talking about that, like heavy enough. It's what she is, heavy enough to hold
Right,
all of these fucking dirty
right.
truths
That's right.
all at once inside of this body and still
Yeah,
love.
yeah, yeah. That's it. That's it. That's it.
I want to thank Dani Shapiro for introducing me to you. She sent me the other day out of pretty much nowhere. She and I are pretty close, but out of nowhere, she sent me the episodes that you had done with her, and I was just like, "Oh, what?"
Oh man, you know what's interesting about that? Y'all should have heard the first version because we recorded a version earlier the day before,
Yeah.
and then her software whatever didn't record.
Mm.
But that one was probably the most intense interview I've ever done. But then the next day it was a lot lighter compared to the first day.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I could feel that there was something that we didn't even scratch the surface, and I was instantly drawn.
Right.
Like I wanted to know who you were. I got the book. I started to read it. This is like 4 days ago.
Oh wow.
I
That was
pounded I
3 months
pounded the book.
ago.
Dude, no, I pounded the book. It's the one that you were I think it's episode 38. She just recorded it during the quarantine. I guess that may have been a couple months back now.
No. She recorded it. We recorded it the day before it came out.
Oh, okay. So then it's recent.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah.
We're, yeah. So that's what's up. I can't even thank you enough for taking the time today to be with me and talk to me and listen to me and teach me. I'm so grateful beyond for your art.
I'm so grateful too that you have committed your life to a practice of wellness and helping other people get better. And using and it sounds like you're using yourself as a vessel and as a model. And I just think we can be better. We can be braver. We can be more courageous.
Yeah.
Um, and we will. And we
Yeah.
will.
Can I have permission to call you to do a part two?
Sure. Just let me know.
Yeah, I will. I feel like in a few months from now when I know more, I want to read your other two books. And then I think I'll be equipped to talk to you again and see what we can learn from each other.
Yeah, and good luck with those writing exercises with your son. I
Mm,
hope you don't get too mad at I hope he's not
dude,
too
he's so
upset.
angry. I'm going to read to you, though, the first thing that I wrote after reading your book. I
Okay.
woke up early this morning and I started what will eventually be a spoken word. And it was because of your book that I wrote this. And it's only 3 paragraphs, but it's the very beginning of what I think is going to be beautiful.
Okay.
It starts like this. When I was little, I remember wishing I had black skin like Tanya Haskins. Tanya. It was like she sang her name every time she said it. She was the epitome of beauty for me. She had bands of every color all over her perfectly braided hair. It was her eyelashes. It was her quiet, dignified look. When she smiled, you could feel that she cared. She cared deeply. She cared about everything. She folded her hands just so. She wrote in this mellifluous cursive that made me swoon. She had eyes that lit up the entire classroom. She sat too far away from me.
Wow. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
That's the beginning,
That last
Tanya.
line. Ooh. She sat too far away from me. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So because you wanted to be closer to her, it's not like you sat too far away from her. She sat too far away from you.
The teacher just placed us. I don't know.
Yeah.
And all
Yeah.
I knew was that she was the prettiest girl in the room.
Feel that.
And I mean, I'm straight. I live for women, but I'm straight. I never wasn't.
Right.
But I just wanted to be closer to her. She felt like she knew. I felt like she had information that I wanted, like
Right.
of how to be a person in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure she did. And she probably had
And she
yeah,
did.
a whole lot of mystery in there too, right? Like
That's right.
that's
That's
right.
right.
That's it. Interiority. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you for today. Thank you for that. And I'm sending you so much love, and we'll talk again.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.